Hi everybody, and thank you again for watching another episode of Gaffer in Gear. In today's episode, we're going to take a look at an EcoFlow. So what is this thing? Well, essentially it's a high capacity battery that can run your high powered lights. Okay, so let's start off by talking about what this actually is. So essentially it's a big ass battery system. Okay, so where this is different to other battery systems is in terms of its output. You can output via USB-C, USB-A, but here's the big point of difference. You can also output AC power because it's got a built-in pure sine wave inverter system. You can also output the car jack power as well. All right, so that's the big point of difference. It's a battery system, but it can run your AC devices. Now, the other point of difference between this and other battery systems is it also has a charger built in. Okay, so you can charge it off AC power and it charges super rapidly. So this is their 800 watt unit. So I think it's 768 watt hour, something like that. I've got the correct amount written here. This will charge in typically under 70 minutes. The longest it's taken for me to charge this is 1 hour and 20 minutes, and that was when the batteries were really cold. So essentially it's a super easy to use battery system that can power your AC devices. Now they come in different sizes. This is the River 2 Delta, which is 800 watts maximum regulated out. It does have a boost mode and it can deal with up to a 1600 watt surge, but 800 watts constant out is what this is rated at. In a few more episodes time, I'll review one of their 1600 watt or possibly one of their 2000 watt systems, and they've got even bigger systems after that. And you can also, with their bigger units, plug additional batteries into them. So in terms of power options, a lot of power options here for battery usage. All right, so let's go through cost, what you get for your money, and then go straight into pros and cons. All right, so this is the River 2 Delta 800 watt. This sells for, and these are just prices I've found just doing a quick search on my phone, around $600 US, but don't hold me to that price because living in Australia, it's very hard to find a US dollar price, okay? And 1,300 Australian dollars. Now, just a quick note here, if you're thinking, well, that's a big price difference, why don't I just buy one from the USA, try and sneak it through customs and save a lot of money? Well, you can do that, but you're going to get a 120 volt version, okay? So different plugs, different system. That's why the Australian version costs more because, you know, it's scales of economy. There's not as many of us as there are people in America and places like that. All right, so buy local is what I'm saying. Don't buy it online from another country because you might not get the power system that suits you. All right, so you get your warranty card, 5 years warranty. So obviously they have some faith in it. Instruction manual, a very quick start instruction manual. Instructions for how to plug it into solar. So you can plug this into solar and charge off it. I know nothing about that. In terms of charging it, you can also charge it off your cigarette jack in your car. And you can also charge it off USB, I think it's USB-C. It would take a very long time to charge it off those options, and you've got your AC charger cable that comes with it. So that's just an IC lead. Now, charging it off AC, it charges really, really fast. So that's the first pro, is charge time. So this takes typically about 68 minutes to charge from flat. The longest it's taken for me to charge it is 1 hour and 20 minutes, and that's because the batteries were cold. Now, in terms of how cold the batteries were, they were 4 degrees Celsius. How do I know that? Because the next pro is this has an interactive phone app that tells you everything that's going on. Now, when it was that cold, 4 degrees Celsius, the batteries, it predicted it would take 1 hour and 50 minutes to charge, to get fully charged. But as it was charging, it heated up and the charge time decreased. Let's go to what I think is possibly the biggest con for a lot of people, and that is because it's got a built-in inverter, it has a cooling fan. Okay, so the cooling fan can get a little bit loud. So if you're running a 300 or 400 watt light through an octadome, for example, and you're doing an interview with microphones, I wouldn't have this at the base of the light stand, but here's the difference between this and your other battery systems is it's got AC out, so you can just plug a power cable in and put this 5 to 10 meters away and you'll be fine. Now, the next advantage with this as a battery system is, unlike other dedicated battery systems, this can run multiple lights at a time, whereas most of our battery systems can only run one single light. Now let's get into the next pro for this, and I'm talking as someone who rents equipment out. This is almost completely idiot proof. The only way that you can make this more idiot proof is if you buy the jacket for it, which is an optional extra. That'll give it a weather protection rating. So that's the only sort of negative I've got with this in terms of idiot proofing it, is as it currently is, it's not weather resistant. So just buy that, that bag for it. That's my big tip if you're doing rentals. Now, what I really like about this unit in terms of it being idiot proof, it is all built into one thing. There's nothing to plug in to get this to work. If you want to charge it, you just literally plug it into the power. There's no multiple connections. Now let's compare that to this high capacity battery system that I had made up. And I started off with 6 of these batteries. I'm down to 4 because you've got the battery here, which is 1.6 kilowatt. That then plugs in via a cable to an inverter system here that gives you your stabilized out. Something has to plug into something, and if you've got an idiot, they're going to mess that up and destroy stuff. Now, in terms of charging, again, I have to plug a charger in. Now, something has to plug into something. That means it's not idiot proof. For example, I've got written on this thing, what is it? Charging terminals do not open. I would have thought that was pretty obvious that you don't open that section. Not if you're an idiot. That's an idiot verifier. So I've had people blow these up by plugging the battery into itself because they wanted to charge it. Even if you do something stupid with this system, I've tried plugging it into itself, it overload turns off real quick. It's 800 watts maximum out. So I tried running a 2,400 watt kettle off it. Okay, now, as soon as I flicked the switch on the kettle, the light in the kettle switch didn't even light up. It turned off that quick. And when it turns off, it tells you what's wrong. It comes up on the display overload. So this is about as idiot proof as you can make a large scale battery system from a rentals perspective. It's electronically governed in terms of it shutting down, and it shuts down super quick when there's a problem. We're talking milliseconds. All right, so let's get into the last couple of pros, specifically for this unit here, which is the River 2 Pro. This comes in at only 7.8 kilograms, and it's quite small. So if you're not running big lights, so you know the biggest light you want to run off a battery system is, say, a 720 or less. That's a pretty lightweight battery system. And the other advantage this has got is it's not power specific. It's not 48 volts or 26 volts or anything like that. It is AC out. So any of your lights under 800 watts that have an AC power option, you can run off this, which is everything that you have under 800 watts. The next advantage for this system is power cycles. So it can do 3,000 power cycles before it gets to 80% battery capacity or battery life. Okay, so 3,000 plus cycles. Now, the devil is in the detail with these. So if you're looking at all the different size units, deciding what to buy, which I've been doing, I would suggest you go and have a look at the technical data. All right, so I was quite surprised. They've got a 1,600 watt unit and they've got a 2,000 watt unit. There's a price difference of about $400 or $500. The charging cycle rate was very different between the two. Okay, so the devil is in the details there. So it's not just about capacity. Check your charging cycles. There's a huge difference from model to model. Okay, the next pro is the user interface. It's very clear to see what's going on. You can see how much power is coming into the unit. You can use it as a UPS. We'll talk about that later on. I wouldn't recommend it as a UPS because it's very loud. But you can clearly see what power is coming out of it. It gives you information as to runtime and battery percentage. Now, the big pro for me is the phone app. Okay, so the phone app talks to the battery via Bluetooth, but you can also set this up for Wi-Fi so that you can do your firmware updates from home. All right, so the phone app, the one big thing that I think is important in the phone app is your AC charging speed. The most I've recorded this thing pulling on a charge was 854 watt. All right, so why would you want to change your charging rate? I mean, don't you just want it to charge fast? Well, here's a scenario for you. Imagine you're working away from home, you're in a hotel room, it's only got one power circuit, and you've got 2 or 3 of these you want to charge. If they're all pulling 800, 900 watt, you're going to trip the circuit that's in the hotel room. So you can program it what power it's going to take in maximum, so you can protect your power circuits. And you can also see straight away on the screen on the front the power change to the amount you've dialed in, so you know it's working. Another important thing in the phone app is the car input. You can set the maximum amount that it pulls off the car when you're doing your charging there, so you're not going to blow a fuse in your car. And here's another pro for the phone app. Let's say you want to conserve power between takes. Well, using the phone app, you can turn off the AC power coming out of the EcoFlow. You can turn the Xboost on and off. Now, we're going to talk about Xboost a bit later on. I think the Xboost is a bit of a waste of time for film and TV lighting. It's really only there for like power tools that need a quick boost or a hairdryer or something like that. Not great for consistent power loads. In the phone app, you can click on specifications and up comes all of the specifications for the unit that you're using. So you've got that reminder of what the unit is capable of. All right, so let's plug a light in and see how it goes. So I've got the Nova P600 here plugged in and the Nova is in standby mode. So as you can see on the display here in standby mode, this is still pulling 18 watt. We've got an estimated 22 hours of runtime with this 18 watt power draw. And you can clearly see the battery is at 99%. Now the estimated runtime will display minutes if the runtime is less than an hour, and if it's over an hour, it will display hours. But the thing to note is when it displays hours, that figure is rounded. So if you need to know with any accuracy what your runtime is going to be, use the phone app. That's really precise. Now I'm going to turn the Nova on here and I've got it set to maximum output. So it's pulling 600 and something watts. In a moment, the cooling fans are going to kick on because when you've got a big unit like this, the fans pretty much fire on almost straight away and they run at full power. So that gives you an idea of the fan noise. Okay, so let's go through some of the run times that I've recorded with different lights. So I've got here listed the runtime on the screen, the predicted runtime from the phone app, and the actual runtime that I got. Now I'm going to go through the results from the lowest wattage light to the highest wattage light that I tested. The Amaran F22C, which pulled 237 watts, came up with an estimated runtime on the screen of 2 hours. The phone app predicted 2 hours and 40 minutes, and the light actually ran for 2 hours and 43 minutes. Next, I tried a Nova P300C. The on-screen prediction was 2 hours. The app gave a more realistic time of 1 hour and 52 minutes, and the real time was 1 hour and 50 minutes. Next, I tried a Sky Panel, which was pulling 407 watt with its fan set to constant. The estimated on-screen runtime was 1 hour, but take a note here, the app said 1 hour and 31 minutes, and the light ran for 1 hour and 31 minutes. The next light I tested was a Nova P600C, set to maximum output. The screen estimated 51 minutes, the app estimated 51 minutes, and the light turned off after 50 minutes. And the last light I tried was a Forza 720B. The display said 49 minutes, the app said 49 minutes, and the light ran for 49 minutes. All right, so let's talk about using the EcoFlow as a UPS or uninterruptible power supply or uninterruptible power system. All right, so what we're going to do in a second is a test where I'm going to have a Forza 720 running. So this pulls more than 720 watts of AC power. And initially, this is going to be receiving its power from AC that is passing through the EcoFlow and to the light. So for this test, the EcoFlow is fully charged. And then what we're going to do is disconnect the AC. The EcoFlow will detect that the AC power has been disconnected and then switch it over to battery operation. Now, just to give you some stats here, there is a time delay on the switchover between AC power and battery operation, and that is about 30 milliseconds or a maximum of 30 milliseconds. So if I'm filming at 1,000 frames per second, won't I get 30 milliseconds or 30 frames of black? Okay, no you won't, because the AC power that's feeding to the light is either running at 50 or 60 Hertz. Everything gets converted to high frequency at this end here, not at the power supply end. So the actual switchover in the UPS here, or in the EcoFlow, is way faster than the frequency at which the power is pulsing at, which is why you can't see anything. All right, so let's turn the light on, and I'll go to my first negative with this as a UPS, and that is if you're running anything bigger than a couple of hundred watts, the cooling fan on the EcoFlow seems to go absolutely crazy. Let's have a listen for it. Yeah, so it's like a jet engine taking off. So if you're doing like live to air or something like that, and you're using the EcoFlow as a backup should the AC turn off, you definitely are not going to want this anywhere near a microphone. So you're going to have to run a little bit of cabling to keep it away from your microphones possibly. All right, so let's disconnect the AC. And if I'm correct, you shouldn't see a thing. The only indicator you've got that the AC has turned off, or your first indicator, is that the fans turn off in the EcoFlow. Of course, the on-screen information tells you that there's no power coming in. All right, so now let's turn it back on. Let's plug it back in and see if that has any effect. Nothing at all. Didn't even notice the switch over. Now, just something I want to verify here in terms of using this as a UPS. Almost every camera department I know here in Melbourne has an EcoFlow on the camera trolley for backing up data and things like that, and sometimes even running the client monitor. And in terms of it being used as a UPS, I've never once heard the cooling fans turn on a camera trolley. And that's because, you know, in that situation where you're backing up your data, you're not pulling hundreds of watts of power. So in that circumstance, never once have I heard the cooling fans on set. Okay, I've got a voltage meter plugged in, so let's do some serious testing. And this is where Gaffer and Gear is so much fun for me, because I didn't pay for this EcoFlow and I didn't pay for the Aperture 1200 that's here. So if we blow stuff up, I'm not gonna cry, but it'll make for an exciting episode if we do, but chances are I'll chicken out before we get to that stage. All right, so just something I've noticed, this is the Australian version, 230 volt. Now, if you're using it as just a battery, so it's just outputting power, it tends to sit around 239 point something. Okay, so it's closer to 240 volts. So 239 point something, and that's regardless of what load you've got on it. So up to 800 watts, it'll be 239 point whatever. Now, the one thing I have noticed that is if I put it on charge, where's the cable? There it is. If I put it on charge, so now we've got the battery charging and power going through the unit, the voltage can drop up to 10 volts. So it can drop down closer to 230 volts. So at the moment it's running at, what's that, 232.1. So I've seen it get down to like 229 point somethings. All right, so the next thing we're going to look at is the Xboost option. So the Xboost option enables this to output up to 1600 watts momentarily. Okay, so to turn the Xboost on, you need to do that via phone app. You can't do it from the front. So I've turned that on, and let's just have a look at the safety warning that comes up first. Xboost works for many types of appliances, but please note, it is best only to power one thing at a time using Xboost. Well, that sort of makes sense. Number two, Xboost works best for hair dryers, kitchen appliances, and power tools. That doesn't fill me with confidence reading that. All right. Okay, the third thing it says, Xboost might not work for electronics with strict voltage requirements, so test them first. All right, so let's have a look at this Xboost mode now. So I've got the EcoFlow battery fully charged, and we've got no power going through except for the cooling fan. So that's 18 watts, and we've got 239.3 volts. So bear in mind, this is the Australian version. Now I'm gonna fire this up to 60% brightness because I figured that'll be close to the 800 watt constant load limit. So let's do that, 20, 40, 60%. And it's outputting 792 watts, so that's pretty close. And we're still getting 239.4 volts. So the voltage is staying very constant across the range of the unit. That's very, very impressive. All right, so let's start slowly increasing. Now, this will run all the way down to 100 volts quite safely. So if I get close to 100, I might stop. All right, so let's have a look. So we're at 60%. Okay, so just going up slowly, 61%. Okay, I've just exceeded 800 watts and we're at 61.3%. 62%. Wow, okay, so the voltage has dropped to 154.8 volts. That's quite a substantial drop. So if you're an Australian gaffer, just bear in mind that if you're a young gaffer, when your voltage goes down, your amperage goes up. So the amperage ratings on your cables are very different now. So you might have to recalculate things if this boost mode does work for a long period of time. All right, let's keep going up and see how far we get. Now again, if it gets close to 100 volts, I'll drop. So it's still sitting consistent 154 volts, but we're only at 63%. I don't want to go too fast in case something does go wrong. Okay, 154.7 volts still, 65%, 66%, 154 volts. I'm just going to go 1% at a time. 67%, 154 volts still. 68%. 69%, still 154 volts, and we've tripped out. Okay, so we were within the voltage limit of the light, so I don't think anything's gone wrong with the light. And on the front here, it's flashing overload. So as you can see, it didn't take long for this to turn off anyway. So that Xboost mode, pretty much useless unless you're using something like a power tool that's a quick burst, or maybe a hairdryer that's a quick burst, but for lighting, pretty much has no use at all. All right, so just my closing thoughts on this. The biggest negative for me is the cooling fan. But if you're doing sync sound, look, if you're running 200 watt or 300 watt light, I think you'd be fine if you put this on a 5 meter power lead and got it a bit further away. If you're running a bigger light, like say 600 watts, you're definitely going to want to run probably 10, maybe 20 meters of power cable if you're in an environment that has an echo. But at the end of the day, still way quieter than running a petrol powered generator. All right, so speaking of petrol powered generators, I think this is going to be the hardest sell point for a gaffer. For the price of something like this, you could buy a petrol powered generator with more output, and that petrol powered generator will recharge in a couple of minutes, and you can also, in 20 years time, still use that generator. Like, I've got Honda generators which are 25 years old and they're still running perfectly, whereas the battery system here would probably be kaput in about 20 years time. But that's not the way to think about it. I've had situations where I can't run a generator because of fumes. So for example, I've had jobs on trains and on trams, on public transport, where we need more firepower than I can possibly get off existing film and TV battery systems. Also, situations where you can't have excessive noise, like shooting late at night. This sort of system, I think, is where it's going to hero. So it's not really fair to compare it to a petrol powered generator. They're two different things. Okay, I'm Andrew Locke. Thank you for watching Gaffer and Gear. Don't forget to tick, like and subscribe.